Across a cold valley in the Yukon sits a patch of land that generations treated like a closed door. Old maps do not explain. They command with a single word written in heavy letters: impossible. The label came from experience, not imagination. Crews went in during earlier decades and did not return with much to show. Machines froze, plans collapsed, and the winter took what it wanted. Locals kept distance, and stories grew in small towns where winter nights are long and patient. The land looks ordinary from a ridgeline. Low hills, a pale river, a sky that turns hard blue in daylight and iron black after sunset. Up close, the air feels heavy, as if the ground has weight beyond rock and ice. Permafrost sits like armor, sealing layers that have not seen warm wind in ages. The silence settles on the ears and makes even simple sounds carry too far. This is not a place that invites newcomers. It is a place that tolerates them. A miner studies that label and answers with action rather than argument. Fuel drums line up. Teeth and wear parts arrive. Heaters, ducting, and ground-thaw gear sit ready under tarps that snap in the wind. A team forms with a plan that looks simple on paper and unforgiving in real life. Break the frozen face, strip to pay, test grades, and chase the gravel if the numbers speak plainly. The older word on the map remains, but the work begins anyway, because the North does not bend to caution notes on paper. What follows is not only a hunt for metal, it becomes a contest between human will and a vault built by winter. A contest that opens a chamber, raises a storm of attention, and leaves behind a line that feels truer with time. The ground is not empty. The ground remembers. That idea frames every step, every risk, every long hour under lights that turn snowflakes into swarms of silver sparks. The first contact with the permafrost explains the reputation better than any warning ever could. Excavator teeth bite and throw sparks in the daylight, tiny stars against blue ice and gray gravel. Jackhammers rattle through gloves and then bounce like toys against something that is not rock and not ice, but a mixture that behaves like both. Charges cough rather than crack, because the layers swallow force with a slow shrug. Industrial heaters roar for hours and move the face by inches, creating slurry at the surface, while the deeper bands sit untouched, smug and stubborn. Every foot gained costs a full day's patience, a tank of diesel, and a handful of fresh bolts. Work turns into routine, and routine turns into a test of mind. The cut exposes stripes of history pressed tight. Sand from a river long gone, silt from a flood that no longer exists, gravel that rolled under a glacier and then froze in place when the climate changed. Steam climbs off new scars and freezes into crystals along the edges, building rime on hoses and helmets. Gloves stiffen halfway through a shift, and face coverings turn to boards when breath freezes in minutes. The site adds a second layer of pressure that does not appear on any report: sound. Long, low groans rise from deep in the wall when heavy iron pauses. Slow creaks move across the face like an old ship twisting in a swell. The ground does not speak, but the senses disagree. Workers gravitate toward the center of the lights and avoid long moments alone at the edges, where darkness licks at the floodlit circle. The schedule presses forward, because schedules always do in places built around deadlines. Buckets scrape, heaters thrum, and the face yields a little and then stiffens again, like a door that moves only when the handle is turned just right. The numbers do not impress anyone yet. The budget does not relax. The season shrinks with every sunset. All of it points toward a hard truth. This is not normal Earth. This is a vault, and the lock was made by pressure, darkness, and time. The project continues anyway, and the vault offers the first clue that it carries more than dirt and stone. A routine pass turns into a discovery with a single hard scrape and a ringing note that does not belong to stone. The bucket stops. The wall gives up a shape caught in clear ice and ancient sediment, a shape that reveals a hand-forged iron tool with lines worn smooth by long use. The layer that holds it sits far below any reasonable date for human work in that spot. Age lines around it read like a clock that refuses to match modern calendars. Camps often fall silent for the wrong reasons. This time silence comes from attention. Images are taken. Measurements are checked. A string of simple facts, refuses to align. The ground around the object says it is thousands of years old. The tool itself says it belongs in a human hand. The map says the region did not hold a settlement that far back. No quick answer closes the gap. The find changes the tone of the site. Heavy weather keeps rolling in, equipment still needs parts, diesel still burns by the drum, but there is now a sense that the dig is not the first attempt. Earlier hands may have reached into this place and come away with nothing but a mark left behind in the cold glass of time. That thought feels like a warning to some and like a challenge to others. The project does not pause at a crossroads. It simply flows into the next set of tasks because the window is short and the road out will soon be a ribbon of ice. Heaters keep blasting, vents keep rumbling, teeth keep chattering against frozen gravel, and the groove of work deepens into a trench through exhaustion. The site offers no comfort, but it offers momentum. The plan expands enough to include documentation of the strange object and then narrows again to extraction, because without extraction, there is no proof beyond pictures. The ground watches in its quiet way and waits to deliver the next turn. Clear signs do not always arrive as flashes. Sometimes they arrive as absence. Wind dies. The whole valley goes still enough to make a person hold breath without knowing why. Pressure builds behind the eyes in a way that hints at change before the first crack splits the wall. Then the permafrost moves in a fast, rolling break that behaves like a wave. Ice and rock surge downward, swallowing the pit with a sound that hits the body as much as the ears. A bulldozer becomes a shape and then nothing. The operator emerges by grit and luck with bones that will carry hardware forever. A steel cable whips across the line so close that air snaps like linen. White hangs in the lamps in a glowing haze while radios spit tense calls. When motion stops, the cut looks torn and alien, like a sculpture smashed and left where it fell. News reaches the nearest towns and then travels farther. The site gains a name that sticks: the Death Pit of the Yukon. Inspectors arrive with clipboards and serious faces, walking the edges with precision because a wrong step could become a story in the next day's report. Investors run fresh risk math and do not like the totals. Recommendations gather around the same idea: stop, seal, leave. The project answers with the opposite. New parts arrive by hard road. Hours extend until midnight feels routine, and morning feels optional. Safety meetings become sharp and frequent. The work now runs on two engines: caution and defiance. The season window squeaks smaller as temperatures drop. The ground feels like an opponent that smiles while pushing back. Yet work has a way of producing openings as long as effort continues. The wall yields unexpectedly, not as a failure, but as a revelation that changes every conversation, every schedule, and every balance sheet connected to the claim. The vault finally cracks, and the light that pours out is not metaphorical. The moment looks ordinary and then transforms. A thin curtain of gravel peels off the face, and the lamps catch a surface that throws light back in warm flashes. A broad lace of visible gold runs through the frozen wall like lightning traced in metal. Nuggets sit in pockets so clear that individual edges can be counted through the frost. Dust turns to sparkles as it falls across the bright seams. No words are needed. Samples move out as fast as protocols allow. Results return with numbers that make trained eyes rerun everything. A second pass confirms the first. These are not grades that inspire mild optimism. These are grades that rewrite plans. Tallies build across long tables and short tempers, and the estimate for recoverable metal lands with quiet force at a figure that would make most mines into legends: roughly $70 million, sitting in a place, a paper map once dismissed with a single word. The site shifts from survival mode to precision mode. Every move must protect lives and protect the pay. While stripping toward fresh sections, the ground makes a new sound, hollow and strange, like knuckles brushing a drum under stone. Careful cuts reveal an opening into a natural chamber that feels both accidental and intentional. Dust hangs in still air. Beams walk across walls that glitter with gold-bearing ore. Stars in a black sky. Boulders hold veins that gleam along fractures like frozen rivers of light. The floor crunches under boots that know this is not normal country. On one wall, lines appear in patterns that recall old northern scripts, angular marks that do not match random scratches. The room tilts from wonder into unease. History and geology collide in a space that refuses easy labels. Extraction remains the mission because the calendar and the budget demand it. But a new layer of caution slides into every plan. The chamber feels like a boundary, a place to cross only with respect and with speed. The world outside the lights begins to pay attention in its own quiet way. ways. Nights around the cut change character after the chamber opens. Snowfields that once lay empty begin to hold shapes at the edge of vision. Unmarked snowmobiles linger just beyond the bright circles cast by the poles, and then fade into drifts when headlights turn. Small drones hum and blink, and then disappear when followed. Security feeds record movement without identity, angles without faces. Soon the pattern grows teeth. Fuel lines are sliced in clean, professional cuts. Control boxes show signs of careful hands. Valves are set in ways that guarantee failure after the next shift change. Machines go down, not at random, but in a sequence that targets the exact bottlenecks that limit production and expose workers to risk. Whoever stalks the line understands mining and understands this site. Guards take stations, lights get pushed farther out, and cameras gain new positions. Even so, a fresh front opens on paper. Notices arrive that turn the claim into a restricted environmental zone with immediate effect. The language speaks about sensitive permafrost and fragile layers, about long-term integrity and short-term hazards. At the same time, public geologic surveys that once mentioned this valley begin to vanish from archives that rarely lose anything. Requests for clarity slow into silence. The weather builds another wall as winter strengthens its grip on the road. The chamber sits at the center of this weather and this paperwork and these shadows, holding a story no one yet understands and a resource that a season cannot ignore. The decision space narrows until only one move remains that protects people, equipment, and value before a forced shutdown. Move the metal fast and quiet, trusting cold and chaos to cloak the exit. The forecast shows a blizzard curling across the mountain passes like a closing fist. The plan forms inside that shape. Containers take sealed positions under a wind that slaps faces raw. Latches lock with checks repeated until muscle memory turns into ritual. Routes thread through valleys and over ridges that change personality in winter. Waypoints line up on maps with Plan B and Plan C sketched in faint pencil. The schedule binds to the front edge of the storm, because the front always hides tracks best and punishes delay hardest. Engines cough to life and settle into a low choir. Headlights dim to slits. Radios hold silence. Snow pours across the road in sheets that erase horizon and depth. Tires test every patch of ice for loyalty. The convoy breathes like an animal, stretching on straightaways and compressing in blind turns where cliffs wait a yard beyond the fog line. Wind wired with ice tries to pry trucks from the route. Drivers watch for the faint glow of the next set of lights and watch gauges that must not lie. Halfway across the worst section, a space opens where a truck should ride. No skid marks, no broken reflectors, no distressed call. The weather swallows search and rescue plans whole. Stopping would chain disaster to disaster. The line keeps moving because time and cold allow no other choice. The missing rig becomes a weight in every chest as the miles tick down. Dawn smears gray over the last pass, and the remaining trucks push into safer ground with metal still sealed and straps still singing from the cold. Hands shake at rest, not from fear alone, but from the release of the fight. Counts begin. Essays follow. Numbers line up with the dream that drove the winter through the worst nights. The tally settles above $70 million, a figure large enough to silence casual doubt and small talk. The legend jumps from campfire story to headline across networks and feeds. The paper label that once called the Valley impossible turns into a trophy case and a warning sign at the same time. The story does not end at the warehouse door. It spreads and deepens, pulling cameras, lawsuits, and arguments into its orbit. Attention arrives in two waves: celebration and control. Financial outlets frame the strike as a once-in-a-generation find. Documentaries race to assemble crews, write narration, and recreate scenes along safer roads with rented gear and staged lights. Streaming platforms stamp out thumbnails and push buzz. Scientists line up to explain what can be explained and then stop when the facts run out at the edge of access. The core mysteries refuse to move. Rich Pay sat inside undisturbed permafrost. A hand-forged iron tool lived in a layer that argued against human presence at that age. Marks in a hidden chamber looked too deliberate to be dismissed. While cameras tell the shiny parts, paperwork leans another way. Rival companies file suits over boundaries and ownership of gravel that migrates across lines during active seasons. Environmental groups demand protection for a region that cannot be replaced once scraped and thawed. Families tied to older losses ask for layers of warnings built into law so others do not add names to hard lists. Government agencies add sealed actions that do not see daylight, turning parts of the story into blank pages with titles. Evidence thins exactly where clarity is most needed. The artifact leaves the site for study and does not reappear in any display case or report. Satellite images suggest new concrete and fresh grading where a chamber once sat, as if a door was first opened and then welded shut. Official replies are smooth and short. Rumors expand to fill the vacuum. Some theories place early northern sailors farther inland than any conservative text allows, leaving tools and marks as breadcrumbs. Other theories point toward a lost group skilled in hard ground that vanished under climate and time. A few wander wider, connecting lights in the sky with lines on rock. The truth remains in the cold somewhere under the seal. Meanwhile, the people who face the wall carry the part that does not make headlines. Dreams bring back the groans from the ice at odd hours. Short drives past snowbound valleys trigger pressure in the sinuses and a tightness behind the ears that memory recognizes. A handful of workers hand away their shares because living with that metal feels wrong, and peace is worth more than weight. Local elders who stayed away from the ridgelines for reasons that predate paper see nothing surprising in the aftershocks. Certain places hold pain, stirring them spreads it. The miner at the center becomes both praise and warning. Schools teach the tricks that made permafrost yield. Opinion pages paint the chamber as a line that should not have been crossed. Security becomes habit, addresses move, and the legend takes a seat at the long table of northern tales where fortune and loss always share coffee. Through all the noise, a simple idea outlasts headlines and rumors. An idea that ties the map, the chamber, the vanished tool, the night intruders, the sealed files, and the missing truck into one thread. The ground is not empty. The ground remembers. That sentence explains why the valley paid and why the valley punished. It explains why the story keeps echoing through winters that bend radio towers and summers that flood shallow creeks. It explains why fascination remains long after the last assay cooled, or audiences drawn to long, true accounts of fortune, danger, and the thin line between discovery and trespass. Subscribing to Gold Era 2.0 keeps the next investigation within reach, because more chapters wait where ice locks, history, and maps still whisper impossible.